use notice. This video contains copyrighted material, the use of which has not always been specifically authorized by the copyright owner. I am making such material available in an effort to advance understanding of religious issues, and fair use of any such copyrighted material as provided for in Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Law. In accordance with Title 17, U.S.C. Section 107. The material in this video is distributed without profit to those who have expressed a prior interest in receiving the included information for research and educational purposes. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Dear brothers attending this meeting, we have met again here, at the Stanley Theatre, for the annual report, because we want to announce to all of you and to the nations that our beloved doctrine of the governing body that refers to the selection of the faithful and discreet slave in 1919 is just a myth, a false story, a fairy tale that we have taught for decades as the truth given to all of the Jehovah's Witnesses. The selection of the faithful and discreet slave in 1919 is a false doctrine among others doctrines that we have begun to discard since 2012 to 2015. We cannot continue teaching this doctrine as a true doctrine saying that it has biblical support, when, as a matter of fact, it does not have any Bible support. This doctrine of the faithful and discreet slave selected in 1919 cannot be sustained with the Bible. In the past we taught by decades that the Bible text of Matthew 24:45-47 was fulfilled with the first nomination of the faithful and discreet slave in 1919 and that this parable of the talents is still in force today, because this inspection made since 1918 to 1919, in 2013 changed and extended from 1914 to 1919 was only the beginning of the inspection, and it would last until the end of the last days that started in 1914. In accordance to this doctrine, Jesus is still checking us today daily how we're administering his talents since 1919. In the Watchtower magazine dated March 1, 2004, page 16, paragraph 15, 16 we said that with any doubt this inspection started in 1914 to 1919 is to be fulfilled totally in the future, after the Great Tribulation occurs, when Jesus, the Master, returns for second time in the clouds of heavens with power and great glory to do the Armageddon, to settle accounts with his anointed servants in charge to administer his talents since 1919 up to date. Once Jesus is arrived, after the Great Tribulation, he will identify who among his slaves have proved to be a faithful and discreet slave to reward him, and who will not, to punish them. Matthew 24:48-50. Let us now refresh our biblical knowledge what we taught in 2004 about this parable. What we published about the parable of the talents before 2015, about when the parable of the talents was fulfilled with the return of the master of his long trip to settle accounts with his servants, that is told in Matthew 25:19. Let's see then the Watchtower dated March 1, 2004, page 16. Paragraphs 15 and 16 that is shown on screen and reads as follows. Inspection time begins. 15. The parable continues. After a long time the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Matthew 25:19. In 1914, certainly a long time after 33 C, Christ Jesus began his royal presence. 3.5 years later, in 1918, he came to God's spiritual temple and fulfilled Peter's words. It is the appointed time for the judgment to start with the house of God. 1 Peter 4:17. Malachi 3:1. It was time to settle accounts. 16. What had the slaves, Jesus' anointed brothers, done with the king's talents? From 33 C onward, including the years leading up to 1914, many had been working hard at Jesus' business. Matthew 25:16. As we have read, all this teaching given in 2004 about the parable of the talents has been totally ruled out forever, because Jesus could not return in 1918, neither in 1914 to inspect his servants, according to Matthew 25:19, and therefore the text of Matthew 24:45-47 could not be fulfilled in 1918 to 1919. Know either from 1914 to 1919. The selection and first nomination of the faithful and discreet slave in 1919 has been only a myth, a false story, a fairy tale that we have taught for decades as the truth. Dear brethren, the idea is this: if the texts of Matthew 24 verses 42, 43, 44, 46, 47, 48, 49 and verse 50 are to be fulfilled in the future, when Jesus returns in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory of Matthew 24:30, it is obvious, dear brethren, that verse 45 of Matthew 24 will also be fulfilled in the future along with the previous verses and subsequent verses after verse 45. Matthew 24:45 could never have been fulfilled in 1914 to 1919. It is a lie, a deception that we should not continue to hold and teach as the truth. That is why we have made in 2015 this new change of understanding in relation to this parable of the talents, published in the Watchtower magazine dated March 15, 2015, page 23, paragraph 11 and 12, where we said the following textually. 11. Hence, when Jesus said that the master of those slaves came and settled accounts, he was evidently referring to the time when he will come to execute judgment at the end of this system. Matthew 25:19-12. According to the parable, when the master comes, he finds that the first two slaves, the one given 5 talents and the one given 2, have proved faithful, each doubling his talents. The master says the same thing to both slaves. Well done, good and faithful slave. You are faithful over a few things. I will appoint you over many things. Matthew 25:21-23. Then, dear brothers, if the text of Matthew 25:19 will only be fulfilled in the future when the master comes to inspect his slaves to select his faithful and discreet slaves, that means that I and my companions of the governing body are not the faithful and discreet slave, neither as a class nor as individuals mentioned in Matthew 24:45-47. Each one of us who make up the governing body still have to wait for Jesus to return for the second time in that future in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, Matthew 24:30, after the great tribulation, to judge the people and make the Armageddon. Once the Master has returned from his long journey started in the year 33 acres, he will proceed to settle accounts with all anointed and members of the other sheep to see if we pass the test of inspection to be declared and sealed as the faithful and discreet anointed slave approved by the Master, and to finally know if we will receive our heavenly reward, or perhaps not. For those of the other sheep who have passed in his favor the test of inspection, will inherit paradise on earth as their reward for having shown fidelity. Sugri Edison, we apologize for any inconvenience that this new light that has to do with the parable of the talents may have caused to you in your credibility and faith in the Watchtower Society as the only true religion. Thank you very much for your presence today in this Stanley Theatre, and I hope to see you again very soon when we have got from Christ another new brighter light of any other doctrine that still is in force as a true doctrine in the Watchtower organization, but needs to be discarded forever to be replaced with another different doctrine.